Poland had a good market around the mid of the last decade, and from there it started to get progressively worse each year. I guess the first point why it started, it was created in our view by the government, is that they misused the position of the engineer, because we all know that no construction project has a perfect design and has a perfect document, tender dossier, as we say, and normally those things which are wrong are rectified as the project goes on. And by the way, that's the cheapest way of doing it, then pricing all of the risk into a design build tender or even a silver book tender. So but that needs a contractor who says, I have encountered these and these difficulties, they were not in the tender, and it needs an employer and an engineer who says, okay, Mr. Contractor, you are right, and I hereby order you to change that and that, or certify this and this extra work and extension of time. Now, what the Polish government did is they did not honor that philosophy under their way of doing business. The engineer became a puppet, more or less, with no powers at all, and this puts a threat to the whole FIEC Red Book philosophy.
I have the impression that it is a rather formalistic interpretation of European law, sticking very much to the letters of rules, without realizing that the European directives do not necessitate that kind of absolute strictness. For example, it is evident that the directives do not allow to modify a contract that has been signed in a way that would change fundamental specifics of the subject matter of the contract. That is evident because that would mean that other candidates who have tendered might have had a better offer if that fundamental change had already been there at the beginning. That is one thing. But if on the basis of a contract concluded it becomes evident that there has been a problem that has not been seen, that it is necessary objectively for technical reasons to adapt the contract, then that is possible according to the European directives, provided you don't change the fundamental principles of the contract. And that is a possibility where I have the impression from what I have heard, which I would have to check with Mr. Witecki, whether the Polish authorities are really aware of that kind of possibility, because for the time being I have always heard a concluded contract must not be changed. In principle it's correct, but as I've said, not as absolute as I have understood it.
We are trying to get a database, so to say, to establish real feedback, hard evidence from the companies. But what we have heard, one big problem is the access to the site. The second problem is the simple fact that when extra work needs to be done to carry out the project, that the engineer is not empowered to certify anything. So what happens? The claims from the contractor go to court. He has to pre-finance unless the court has decided, which can be a period up to 2 or 3 years, and that puts a serious impact on his cash flow, on his liquidity. It's not the case that all the Polish contractors are big companies and can endure that for a very long time. We have also medium-sized and small contractors on the market, which means if the engineer does not certify and the court will not judge, then there will be no decision, the government will not pay, which puts the problem for their cash flow, and some have already gone bankrupt.
Well, I have the impression that the situation has developed into something which is a bit stuck, because it seems that there is so much distrust on both sides that it seems difficult that the parties start discussing openly with each other. And a situation like that can only find a solution if people start discussing openly together, trying to find a solution that is acceptable to both. Because otherwise it will be complicated.
I think a contract and a project is only so good as it is prepared. And we have two options for preparing design. One is the project is prepared by the employer, but then in a professional way, which is certainly not the case right now. Or the employer says, I cannot do it because I have no money, or I have no skilled people, and I don't want to use a consultant to do the detailed design. Then I make it a design-build contract, and I just specify my employer's requirements and then let the contractors come with their design. So I think the Polish government and JIDAKA should make up its mind. Either they say, we want to do a lot of design, but then they have to do it in a professional way. We cannot live with what they are doing. Or they say, we cannot do it in a professional way, we admit, but then they shouldn't give any design and not make the industry responsible for their 40 design. Then they should say, okay, we specify what we want, we give employers requirements, and then we let the market come with their design and with their design build skills. So I think the Polish government does a hybrid. Yeah, they do a mixture, a mixed creature between red and yellow book, and that is certainly one of the worst way of doing it, because then the responsibilities are blurred and the contractors do not exactly know what they are responsible for, and that is a very bad situation from a legal point of view as well.
That I have the impression that first of all the communication channels of a normal discussion of people involved in these things have to be improved. There has to be an openness trying to understand the other side. It doesn't make any sense to blame the other side. Whoever is on the one and whoever is on the other side. It doesn't make any sense to blame the other side only. In most cases it's factually erroneous and it doesn't create any progress. So it is necessary to find a common basis for discussion, and once that basis is there, then to discuss point by point how things have to be solved in the most efficient manner, as seen from the administration, as seen from contractors, as seen from engineers, and then to find the point where these three views meet and then agree on doing it like that. Of course, that also requires that there is mutual trust amongst the persons and that they have a common aim. The common aim has to be to provide Poland, its citizens and its industry with the infrastructure that is necessary for the sound development of the country. Because let's not forget one thing. The infrastructure is not being built in order to give money, earnings to contractors or engineers. These infrastructures are built because they are necessary for Poland. And if anything goes wrong, it's Poland who is the final victim of it, and that is something that should be avoided. It's not for that reason that the European taxpayer gives the amounts of money to Poland that it gives to Poland.